Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flicker Effect episode 434. We are recording this and streaming live on Thursday, March 9th, 2023. I'm David Lotz. Joining me, as always, is Bobby Jackson. How's it going, Bobby?
It's going good. How's it going with you, Dave?
It is pretty good. Take two for our episode, but we got this.
Yeah. Come on, internet, give us some good streams, some good vibes, some good streams, because you weren't nice to us last time. So take two.
Yeah. If you're listening or watching us this for the first time, yeah, we have attempted this once already about 30 minutes ago. We're having some technical problems, but I think this one's gonna be fun. I think we're good.
Cool. So I guess since we kind of already had jumped into it the first time, let's jump right back into it the second time. Yeah. We're going to talk about the headline. The big news this week is that the Punisher is making his way into the MCU, and it's none other than Jon Bernthal, who played the character back on the Netflix series. So he first made his debut in the season 2 of the Daredevil series. So I guess it's only fitting that he pops up in this first season of the MCU's Daredevil that will be coming out on Disney Plus probably sometime next year, I'm guessing. So yeah, I think that the Hollywood Reporter reported on it. They had sources that told them that Jon Bernthal had been cast to come back as the character of Frank Castle in the MCU's Disney Plus series. So they reached out to Marvel, and of course they had no comment because they're probably not ready to talk about it officially. But the thing that I am most sort of, I guess, on edge about with the whole thing is that it's great that he's coming back, but the fact that it's coming back to Disney Plus and it's the MCU, it leads me to believe that I'm wondering if they will tone down the character. He hasn't been portrayed in any kind of toned down way before. And I feel, one second. Sorry, I had a cough. Had to put myself on mute.
That's what that's for, man.
But he's never been watered down before. So it's interesting because the character has come a long way in the comics to where his symbol has become a big talking point in a political thing and everything else behind it. So it's very weird, the metamorphosis of the character and to see where he is today in the comics. But outside of that, it's the fact that he's still known for being a violent character in a much different way than I would say Deadpool. I mean, Deadpool is very violent and his movies are rated R, but there's sort of a not maybe sort of an over the top, but kind of you just sort of go with it flow because it's not really real with what Deadpool does, but with what Frank Castle does, what the Punisher does is very real and grounded. So it seems like it's more mature in that way. So I don't know if they will shy away from it. And I think that's my biggest worry in terms of them bringing the character back. So I know that the last time that when he was in the Netflix series, it was very violent. So I don't know if people coming from that into this one will accept any kind of toned down version, just in the same way that they didn't want to see a toned down version of Deadpool from Ryan Reynolds. So I'm very curious and got my eyes wide open on this one. But how are you feeling in terms of, like, obviously hearing the news about the character coming in and any kind of expectations you might have with him being on Disney Plus?
I mean, overall, I'm not as familiar with the character as you are, and a lot of Marvel fans are. I mean, but I'm familiar enough to know how violent I think the character is, and I have a hard time imagining that he'll be portrayed in the show in this new MCU Disney produced show
Mm.
in a way that people like diehard fans will enjoy anyway. Um, but I don't know. It's tough. At the same time, most of the time, Kevin Feige and Marvel is good at what they do, and I feel like they could find an interesting way to include the character where it's like not doing a disservice to the character, but at the same time, it's just frankly not as violent.
Mm.
Because I mean, it's not just that he's violent; it's also like just straight up gun violence, which
Yeah.
in this day and age is kind of a sensitive subject, understandably. So
When
it's
it's
tough,
portrayed in a real way, though, I think.
right?
Um, because when you look at one of my favorite series and number one on my most anticipated list for this year, John Wick is right around the corner, and you talk about gun violence.
Oh yeah,
It's
I
from
just
top to bottom, but it's
yeah,
more like it's like I said with Deadpool, it's kind of like over the top, and it's done in a way where it's not. I wouldn't say it's grounded, basically, and where the gun violence with what the Punisher does, it feels very much real world, close to home kind of thing.
right. And it's not. I mean, it's one thing I think for what is John Wick like Lionsgate or you know
Yeah.
it's one thing for basically any other studio that's not like really a family friendly
Mm.
studio to produce something like John Wick versus to bring a character into the Marvel Cinematic Universe that's that kind of violence. Yeah, it'll be interesting. We were talking about before how much he'll actually appear in the show.
Mm.
I think you mentioned earlier that at least according to IMDb, he's listed on like every episode, but that can't be quite trusted. I remember during House of the Dragon, originally it made it seem like I think certain characters are going to appear, because of the cast change in that show that they were going to
Yeah.
be in so many episodes, and it totally didn't play out that way. It's like they were updating IMDb like week after week. So that can't really be trusted. I have a feeling maybe he won't be in it a lot. Um, I would bet good money. I don't think he'll be in it a ton. Maybe more of a pretty minor appearance, if anything.
Well, and you're probably right, but I do wonder though what would be the reason why you would use him and John Bernthal in particular for this character if you have any intention of not making him who he is, basically, and
Hmm.
toning that down. Like you didn't have to pull him into this Daredevil series. You
Right.
could have done anything else. So um if you're going down that road, to me it's like you might as well go all in that respect. Obviously I can understand if you're pulling back somewhat, and now that Disney Plus does have that parental guidance or whatever, where you can kind of it's behind a certain sort of wall to a certain extent. You can do a little bit more there than you could have when Disney Plus first came around. I'm just curious, just as the nature of um like you have Blade coming, you have Punisher now coming, you have Daredevil series, and you have Deadpool, all violent characters in
Hmm.
the past of what you've seen from them before. So um I don't know why you would bring them in if you don't have to, and change them to an extent that is going to make people angry. It's like you don't have to. You don't have to bring them in.
Right.
You could just leave them on the table and say, "Well, we can't really do it the way that it was done, so we just will leave those
Just
toys in the box. We won't play with those toys."
mm,
But if you're going to play with them, people are going to expect you to, do them right and not uh, water it down. So I don't know. We'll see.
yeah. I agree with you. Yeah, I guess we'll see.
What one thing I did see and notice, well, two things actually, is that there's two people who were not mentioned as returning, and the actress Deborah Ann Wall and Eldon Henson, and they played Karen Page and Foggy Nelson.
Hmm.
So it's interesting that those two actors are not, well, for what we know and from what's been rumored, I would say this is nothing official, but they are not listed as being back. So, but the characters, we don't know that they're not going to be in it. So it's like either they're recasting those characters or they're just not in it for this series, which either way seems so strange because Foggy is literally Daredevil and Matt's right hand man. So I don't know how you um, do that. And then
Yeah.
if you do have him and it's not the same actor, it makes it odd. That's all I'll say about that one.
I would be shocked if they recast those parts.
Yeah.
Like, I would venture to guess that is like a 0.01% chance that that's what they do. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, anything's possible, but I don't think Deborah Ann Wall has been up to much. I mean, it's been
No.
my understanding. I think I'm not saying she was trying to get work and she couldn't. I don't know anything about her situation, but
I
I
think
feel like there
somewhere
were
along
like,
those lines.
yeah, I feel like post Daredevil, there was a lot of talk about that, like that, she was having a hard time finding anything, and
Hmm.
that's unfortunate. I think she's a great actress, and I like she was great in that role.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna have that character, not cast her, like I would imagine it's for good reason. Like either
Sure.
she was finally like, no, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. Um, but yeah, no, it's an odd omission for sure.
And I think she did just land something too, but
Oh,
I
did she?
don't know that. Yeah, but I don't know that it coincides with the timing in terms of why they wouldn't have had her back for this. I think the news that I saw of her getting cast in something came after the fact that they knew that there's going to be a Daredevil Born Again series on Netflix, and I think they had asked her, had they reached out to you, and she's like, no, I haven't heard anything. No one's called me or anything. So I think this was, even after that she's gotten some work. So it seemed like at the time she probably would have been available if they had asked. So
Yeah.
who knows?
And I'm looking
Um,
at her IMDb now. I
hmm.
remember because I've played some God of War Ragnarok, and that's right, she does appear in that, in
Oh,
one of the
okay.
characters in that game. And I see she's got an episode on Quantum Leap, the new version of
Hmm.
Quantum Leap, of course.
Hmm.
Um, anyway,
There's sticking on Daredevil for just another second or
Mhm.
two. There was something that was, again, take this with a huge grain of salt, very much rumor mill because I'm reading it from Reddit. And so you know what Reddit is and how that works. But I found the news interesting none the least. And so I'm kind of curious to get your take on it. So I'll read you some bullet points of what some Twitter, what some Reddit user said. So, in regards to the Daredevil series, it says Daredevil Born Again is still grounded and focused on serious themes, but I have heard it is going to be lighter in tone. There's a heavier focus on how Matt Murdock helps the underprivileged in the courtroom, very episodic. And then he goes on to say, I've heard the episodes will focus on different cases, and Matt will use Daredevil to help his clients outside of the courtroom. This will spiral into a bigger story throughout the 18 episode run, becoming more serialized as it goes on. The the 3 6 episode pods, quote unquote pods, will not be released back to back. They will take a break in between each pod for other Disney Plus originals to air. So I saw that and it reminded me of, I know you didn't really watch this series, but Agents of Shield. They
Hmm.
I forget what season it was. It was like maybe fourth season or so. I remember them sort of experimenting with that kind of a model when they were doing episodes. They'd have like a 4 episode arc, and then it would lead into a different arc after that for however many episodes, 22 or whatever it was back then for Agents of Shield. And I remember really liking that structure quite a bit because it felt like almost like a comic book, and where you would get a few issue run and then it go into a different story. And if they're doing something similar to Daredevil, I can kind of see it in a way with it being 18 episodes, um, that it could break up in arcs, 6 episode arcs.
Mhm.
So what do you think about that idea?
The 3 6 episode arc idea in general. I
Yeah,
mean, I
but
have no.
also with them breaking it up too, if that's the case.
I have no complaints about that. I mean, not sure if that's what they do. How I guess, hey, how long are the breaks in between the arcs?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's at the to a point where it's like, okay, well then these are seasons. These are 6 episode seasons. Like,
Mm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I guess
I,
it's all semantics at that point, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where you see where I'm coming from. Like, if
Yeah.
there's decent gaps, I think most
Yeah.
people are gonna just look at it like, well, it's another season. Like that's what people are used to, at least in the States. Like, I would imagine if they are trying to do a little break where it's like, okay, we're ending one arc of Daredevil, like the first arc, and then we're jumping into, I don't know, quick, like immediately the next week into another season or of another Marvel show, and then we jump right back into the next arc and then another Marvel show. But still, I think people would look at that like seasons. Again, not that that matters, but that all that said, I don't have an issue with it. I mean, my thing is as long as they're well done, as long as the episodes don't feel too short, I'll be happy. I think that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, it's all a matter of how big the break is in between these two or in between these pods, if that's the way they end up going with it.
Mhm.
And I think that it's interesting that they would slot in something else from Marvel within the break period of the Daredevil series as it goes on. And I thought I remember reading, I didn't see it as I was just kind of looking, but I thought that what I had saw was that it would go throughout the entirety of a year, in real time, in terms of like you get 6 episodes a break and then you get another six,
Okay.
and by the time all 18 episodes had aired, it'd be like basically from January to December or something like that.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I don't know, I guess we will hear more about that probably in July at Comic-Con, I'm guessing. Maybe.
Probably. I would imagine so.
So what else is out there? Are you caught up on Last of Us?
Oh, of course, please. How dare you ask me that?
You never know. You
No,
never
you never
know. There
know,
could be
especially with
some
me. You never
extenuating
know.
circumstances.
No, Last of Us is a required like scheduled viewing for me now. The big question will be this weekend how much it will be like me watching it right when it airs or
Right.
not. That remains to be seen. But and that's funny to say since it's the season finale, but no, I've definitely I'm caught up
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
How are you feeling so far at this point in the series? I mean, earlier you mentioned the idea of if you're that tuned into a show, you must really be, enjoying it. But um, as far as not having played the game and just kind of coming to it as it is, what's been your thoughts from the last time I guess we talked about it, which we both were on board of saying we really like the show, to this point now and leading into the season finale?
I think the show is fantastic. I have not played the game, as you just mentioned. I have no familiarity with. I knew really nothing about that game going into the show, other than there is a man and a younger woman girl that is traveling with him through a what appears to be a zombie apocalypse. That's really all I knew. And no, I think the show's
Oh,
great.
you said the Z word. People will jump on you for that.
Well, I'm saying that's what it felt like to me, having never played it before. Like, I wouldn't call it that now that I've watched the
Oh,
show,
gotcha.
but I'm saying at the time, having never,
Okay,
when I hadn't played the
gotcha.
game before and I see images from it, it looked like a zombie apocalypse. That's what it looks like. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, the show's great. I would say about the most recent episode, not without spoiling it or anything, but I mean, episode 3 was so good. I think just basically everybody was like, where does the show go from here? How do you top this? Um, and even though episodes
Mm-hmm.
haven't necessarily been like better than that one, that doesn't mean they haven't been great. And I haven't been enjoying the show. They've been great. And I wouldn't say episode 8 was better, but it was probably on par for me with episode 3, almost. Because if I had to pick one,
Wow. Okay.
maybe I would go still with episode 3 is better. But episode 8 was quite good. I liked it a lot. But the show's amazing. How about you? How
Yeah,
you
I
feeling
agree.
about
It's yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I can't say anything else that you didn't say already. It's just been really great to see in terms of really one of the things I think I've liked the most about it has nothing to do with the show itself per se, and it's more along the lines of how there had been a lot of concern from people who had played the game before going into it of the casting of Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey as Joel and Ellie. And Ellie,
Yeah,
is
I
it?
think it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's
okay.
Ellie.
I don't know. I just blanked on it all of a sudden. I was like, wait, is
Oh,
that
I've
right?
I've done that too with specifically with her character. There's been times I'm like, wait, is that her name? No,
Yeah, I was like,
I
wait,
get it.
what? So yeah, there's been a lot of concern and mostly from, I would say, from the point of Bella Ramsey. I think she was really getting the most of it in terms of her not looking like the character from the game and not being sure that she could handle it. And I think she's more than proven any critics that were not on board very wrong, because she's been very capable with throughout this series and continues to show like signs of excellence in terms of how well she acts when she's given particular scenes. And it
Right.
just feels very visceral and connected to her. And it's just, yeah, I would say that last episode, that episode 8 was, or 7. Wait,
8.
now I'm getting confused with my numbers. 8.
Yeah. So I think
Okay.
it's a 9
What the
episode
8
run.
was for me. Okay. That's what threw me off. I was like, is it 8 episode run? But
Right.
yeah, that episode 8, I'd say for me, that was definitely in my. I don't. I haven't sat here and thought about ranking them or anything in any
No.
episode order, but I'd say it's either my second or third favorite episode, something like that. So yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, no, the show's very, very, very big.
yeah, and when you think about it, it's not just that. It's like, so last week or earlier this week, I had thought about something that hadn't been put out there until I literally thought it, and the next day I saw it. And it was the fact that I can't recall a period in time that an actor had been in a number one movie 2 weeks or in a row or something like that, or two within a month, I guess, period,
Mhm.
and being two different movies, and that being Jonathan Majors.
Yeah.
He had been number one movie for Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and then a few weeks later, he becomes in the Creed 3 number one movie of the week. And so it's like, I don't recall an actor that's done that. I don't, a lot of it has to do with the timing in terms of when those movies were released, but also, the franchises that they're part of, that he's part of with those two. It helps in that sense of like, yeah, I could easily see how that becomes a thing where you could be in the number one movie and within a month, two number one movies. So that kind of leads me to what I was about to say, which is that it made me also think in terms of how well Pedro Pascal is is firing right now, because as The Last of Us winds down, we just had The Mandalorian start to pick up as of last week in terms of
Mm,
coming back with season 3. And now yesterday we had episode 2. Now I said last week when we talked about the first episode that I thought it was solid. It was nothing wrong with it. It was off to a start where it felt like getting your reacclimated back to things, and a little bit short for my taste. Well, for a lot of people's taste, I think it was like 28 minutes without the credits. So,
right.
yeah, definitely a short episode. But then this week comes back and it's like I think it was 45 minutes, but I don't know how long it was exactly without the credits. But definitely a longer episode and more what I felt like of what I've been waiting for in terms of what I really wanted to see. Not necessarily within that first episode, because I get it, where you come back like that, and it wasn't a bad episode by any means. Again, it was solid, but this was the episode that had me like, okay, I wish I could hit play on episode 3 right now, because that's how it ended in terms for me, and in the way I was excited by what I saw. So I am just like, okay, as Last of Us winds down, let's jump full steam ahead into Mandalorian, because this is now starting to really like fire up, and I am so excited and really waiting. Can't wait to see what happens with the rest of this season based on just this episode we got yesterday. So I hadn't talked to you about it, but I obviously you had a chance to see it. So thoughts?
Finally watched it last night because of didn't get to watch it as soon as it comes out, like everyone else, because of Disney's terrible practice of how they're releasing their episodes, which I hate.
Yeah.
That's a whole other subject. But uh yeah, I'll recap as well. I also very much enjoyed the first episode. I didn't think the first episode was great. But it's about what I expected and I liked it. I thought it was a good intro, kind of like you said,
Mm.
getting back into the swing of things kind of episode. But I also didn't think it was like amazing. It could have been better. But the next episode, I will first say I agree with you that like absolutely I would, if I could have watched episode 3 right after it, I would have immediately watched episode 3. I'm very interested to see where the next episode's going to go, where the show and the season's going to go.
Mm.
I will say overall I'm not as thrilled with the episode. Like like we've had this discussion more specifically with Michelle, like
Mm-hmm.
in that sense of like, has Andor kind of ruined us? Like, like
Mm.
because
Okay.
Andor
Okay.
was like a different level of Star Wars show, and I made the
Yeah, for
argument
sure.
myself that yes, Andor. It's almost like comparing Andor and Mandalorian isn't even fair. Like they're
Mm-mm.
almost two different kinds of shows.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and I stand by that. I'm still enjoying The Mandalorian, but I will say watching this one, there was a lot of aspects to it, especially with just the dialogue and the writing that I was like, yeah, this is like junk food, basically, like I said
Yeah.
before, like, and that's cool. I'm fine with that. But at the same time, it's like there's aspects of this that there's things in the episode that are just unnecessary. Like there's writing that's just straight up not very good. Um, there's just stuff about it that is like immediate, like we're not going to go into spoilers, but the episode starts and you see a location and a character and I'm like, really? Like we're already
Mm.
like going right back to this. Like this feels so like we were just here, like in another show, but we were just here. Like I don't know, stuff like that just didn't seem necessary. There was aspects of the way the story was told that I thought could have been a little better. With that said, I mean, as a Star Wars fan, as a fan of like this culture that I don't know a lot about, the Mandalorians, like I'm very excited that, it's not a spoiler to say that, we go to Mandalore and I'm excited to see where things go from here. Absolutely. I'm not saying I hated the episode, but I don't know.
Hmm.
I was watching it feeling like, oh man, Michelle's rubbing off on me. Like, I don't know
Wow.
if this episode is quite doing it for me like the first one did. That's kind of
Huh.
where I am.
That's interesting. I'm
Yeah.
curious as to what were your sticking points on it, but one thing I will definitely say that what I enjoyed, without giving spoilers, is a few weeks ago when we did our Ant-Man review, I remember talking specifically about there being the scene when in Quantumania they're in the quantum realm, and you really kind of get a first look at the residents of the quantum realm and how it felt very Star Wars-esque, and how much I liked seeing the weirdness of the creatures that they did within that movie, and
Mm-hmm.
how I wish that I could see stuff like that in Star Wars. And sure enough, this episode gave such a really cool creature design to me that I don't think
Yes,
I've ever seen in Star Wars before. And I
I
was like,
very much agree.
this, yes, I was like, more of this, please. Like it
Mhm.
looks so different. And I
Totally
thoroughly
agree.
enjoyed that. Yeah.
I enjoyed that. And yeah, that is definitely a difference. Like going back to Andor, like Andor was very much like, oh, it's just a lot of humans around. And we
Right.
don't really see a lot of
Yeah.
aliens. Like,
Not many.
did everyone in the galaxy turn human?
Yeah.
um, as good as that show was.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the creature design, I know what you're referring to, was
Mm.
pretty cool. And other creatures too. It's good to see
Yeah.
that there's other creatures
Mm-hmm.
in this world that, you know, obviously there would be, and it's cool to see that. And it's cool to see that the show has a good budget to pull off some of that stuff and it not just look like it's poorly done in a with a
Yeah.
television show kind
Mm-hmm.
of budget.
Yeah. It's definitely a noticeable difference. And I don't know how they will address this going forward, other than the fact that Bob Iger has gone on record as saying that they're going to kind of pull back on some of the things that they're doing, and maybe focus a little bit more on the quality of stuff. But you can absolutely see the difference if you put an episode of The Mandalorian on, an episode of Boba Fett on, an episode of Obi-Wan on, and an episode of Andor on. You could see literally the difference in all four of
Oh
those
yeah.
shows. It's just crazy. So I do hope that we can at least get some level of parity between the majority of the shows. I can understand why maybe one or two might be elevated a little bit higher, but I think the baseline should at least be Mandalorian in terms of what we get for production and the way it looks from a visual standpoint.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd like to think Bob Iger, when he was retired, was sitting there watching Obi-Wan going, what the is this?
Can you
And that
imagine?
and now that he's back, he's walked into Lucasfilm and gone, what the did you what was that?
Yeah,
We're gonna have a talk about quality.
yeah.
I can dream.
No, I mean, I think so, and um, I did see something. It was a quote, and I don't know the full context of the quote, but he had mentioned something about when it comes to series, they were going to focus on quality over quantity, and for the theatrical, um, make the budgets not so overblown. But he didn't quite say those words, but I think he said something along the lines of kind of scaling back the budget, which I just hope that means that they're going to be more responsible with the budget that they are allowing themselves to have,
Right.
as opposed to cheaping out and cutting corners and making it look, not up to a quality standard. So I'm hoping that's kind of what they're referring to, and the idea that maybe some of that money, because I think he also had mentioned the fact that he was quoted as saying maybe certain characters we don't need to have 3 movies or 4 movies for these characters. Maybe a
Mm.
couple movies are enough. and we introduce more new characters. There's 7,000 Marvel characters out there that there's great stories to be mined and of such characters that people aren't aware of. So I'm kind of hoping it, or sort of reading between the lines there is what he's saying is that as we get into the third movies or fourth movies of some of these characters, not only does the budget for those movies get bigger because you kind of expect them to go bigger, but the salaries of the actors that are attached to these movies goes up as well. And so if you are bringing in newer people and not quite developing them to the point where there's on their third or fourth or fifth movie, then you can probably not have to worry about paying one actor like 20 million or whatever the case may be, and you can
Right.
curtail some of that budget a little bit and use it for other things. So maybe there's more responsibility and spending that he's talking about in terms of when it comes to the movies.
Probably, yeah. That sounds about right.
While we're on Star Wars, we do have Celebration coming up within about a month.
We do.
And there was an article that mentioned that some stuff that had got announced. I don't recall if it was officially announced, but I think at least a couple of them were. I know for sure that the Taika Waititi movie had been officially announced, or whatever he's going to be doing. And then so was the Patty Jenkins movie, the Rogue Squadron. The one I don't know for sure if it was ever officially announced was the Kevin Feige movie that he's going to do. I thought it was just sort of put out there and not
Yeah.
in an official statement, but they were kind of like, oh yeah, he's working on one, but you know, developing, I guess might have been the
Developing.
word they used at the time. But well, with the new news that we got this week, we're no longer getting the Rogue Squadron Patty Jenkins movie, and Kevin Feige is no longer doing the movie that he was going to do as well, which we don't know. But Taika Waititi, his movie remains. That now it sounds as though he is looking to be uh, one of the cast in the movie as well.
Mhm.
Uh, I was not surprised, unfortunately, to hear that these at least two of these had been canceled. Um, One maybe because with Patty Jenkins, one it had already been sort of put on the back burner, so the idea that they just decided not to do it just isn't a big surprise. But the Kevin Feige one, because it was only in development, that one wasn't a big surprise either.
Right.
Especially now that I feel like, again, with Bob Iger coming back and things kind of him trying to right the ship for Marvel and for the Lucasfilm stuff, he's probably told Kevin to, let's focus on Marvel right now, and maybe somewhere down the line that Star Wars movie can come to fruition once again. But I think that that's probably maybe the direction of Iger is telling Feige that we need to make sure our ducks are in a row and you have more time to spend within the MCU stuff. So yeah, so I guess that wasn't a big surprise either. The Taika one staying, honestly, I think it surprised me the most because I I guess to their credit, they're not reactionary in the sense of like, okay, Love and Thunder didn't do what people wanted it to do critically wise. That we're just going to just not do that anymore and push it to the side. So he still has his thing. It's just hard to know or at least get excited for it just because even though I am a fan of his work, I think I've liked pretty much everything he's done. I don't think I've seen anything outside of the I'm talking about outside of Marvel stuff that he's done that I haven't liked. Um, but it does even from the moment he was first announced, I had a certain level of apprehension of him handling a Star Wars thing without knowing what the Star Wars thing he is handling because I've never seen him do specifically that tone for Star Wars in a way that I would make me say, okay, I think he's got a great handle on it. Other than the fact that he's directed what, one episode of the first season of The Mandalorian,
Yeah.
maybe two. Um,
Yeah, I feel like he
but
did
even
another
those
one
had
at some
humor in
point,
it.
but mhm, yeah.
Yeah. And so I still wasn't, it wasn't a big enough sample size for me to know for sure. Obviously, I knew he could handle directing in and of itself, but writing and directing is where it kind of comes into play, where I'm not sure if I am going to be completely on board with it until I know what exactly he's doing. And I can be like, okay, that works. Maybe he's doing an IG-11 movie where, I don't know. He's, something along
Yeah.
those lines. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. And it doesn't have anything to do with anything necessarily, but um, that could work. But something along the lines of trying to do a movie in the vein of the regular franchise, the 1 through 9 kind of movie, I that would be one that I'd be like, well, if someone else is writing it, but knowing that he's not, he is writing it, I think. And
Mhm.
so now I don't know that I would trust him doing one of those kind of movies.
Uh,
So what
yeah.
do you think? What do you think?
I'm when it comes to Taika, first of all, yeah, I'm no surprise, I'm with you. Like, I like Taika Waititi. I'm gonna be very clear. I think he's a very talented
Yeah,
filmmaker, but I will also
very.
admit I have not liked everything he's done.
Hmm.
I have openly
What haven't
said,
you liked? Outside of
well,
Marvel? Outside of Marvel?
oh, outside of Marvel, not
Yeah.
much. I mean, outside of Marvel, he's been great. Like,
Yeah. Okay.
it's more Marvel, like, and maybe that's my problem. Maybe it's I think he's just best suited for making his own thing, you know?
Mm,
Um, but yeah, to go into the world of Star Wars, not obviously Star Wars has humor in it. No, without a doubt. But right now I have a hard time picturing like a a whole Taika Waititi film in the Star Wars universe that won't feel very different. And I'm not against different. Like maybe it would be
right.
fun to do a much more humorous Star Wars movie. But it's also tough when we haven't had a movie in quite a while. And not to say I want all Star Wars movies to be like big, like epic part of a like trilogy of film kind of situation. But now that it's been so long, I do like feel like, okay, you guys are really like taking your time and trying to get your ducks in a row before you put out another Star Wars film. Make sure you do it right, right? Okay, good. Like that sounds great. But it's getting to the point that we're waiting long enough that I'm like, I almost
Hmm.
anticipate that by the time we get to Star Wars on the big screen, it is going to be like, oh wow, like this is a big news story. Like, kind of like we're getting in the books of the High Republic. But
Mhm.
then to do like a random Taika Waititi Star Wars movie, and maybe that would be the beginning of something, but I get the impression it wouldn't be like I don't know. Like when it comes to Taika Waititi and Star Wars, it seems like he would be best suited for doing his own Star Wars show on Disney Plus, not necessarily a movie.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess that seems to be a priority, but maybe it's great. Maybe he's, whatever he's worked on and his idea or script is solid, and I hope it's great. I'm very
Yeah.
skeptical.
I
I think
mean,
I'm like
yeah.
you. I'm very skeptical.
Yeah. I obviously, like I mentioned, we have Celebration coming up next month, and
Yeah.
I would think that that's going to be something that they talk about, since it is the one that's survived the cleansing, I guess, of some of the stuff that they had on their slate. And then there's still that Damon Lindelof movie out there that may or may not be announced at Celebration as well. So all I know is that, and I think most people probably feel this way, is that whatever they announce movie wise next month, it has to be almost bulletproof in terms of reception, because if they come out of Celebration having announced something and people aren't excited about it. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the next movies and they won't be out for a while. And so
Oh
for to
yeah.
have that hanging over us of not excited for a movie for 2 years before it comes out from now, probably that's not good.
No.
And so
No.
yeah, I got my fingers crossed that they pull it off and have everyone excited again, because who doesn't want Star Wars to be something that people can look forward to and enjoy on all levels, like we used to, in terms of how much unity it had, as opposed to how much it's divisive now. So
Yeah.
yeah. Um, One of the other things that I'm kind of curious about, or at least to wonder what you think, and it goes along with the movie stuff, is, do you think, in terms of, they have one panel and they said that it will be something in regards to the movies and then other people, and I think they mentioned a special guest or something like that. So they didn't exactly tell everything that was going to be there. They did mention that there will be an Ahsoka panel, which you have to imagine at this point
Oh, yeah.
that they're going to show stuff, that they're going to bring out the entire cast and announce all the cast that hasn't
Mhm.
been announced. But we know of at least two other shows for Disney Plus that will be coming out at some point in time. One being Skeleton Crew, and the other being The Acolyte. One first question, I guess, is: do you think either of those will make an appearance at Celebration next month?
Yes. I guess, what do we know? Are we getting Skeleton Crew first?
Hmm, I I'm leaning towards yes, because I
I
think
can't
that's
remember.
done filming. I think that it
Oh, okay.
wrapped maybe 2-3 weeks ago at most. And I am pretty sure the Acolyte is still filming in London currently. So yeah.
So I would venture to guess, well, they at Celebration will get a look at both of them.
Mm, mm,
I think there's a good chance nobody else will, because that's what happened last year at Celebration. There, people
yeah.
saw Ahsoka footage, or at least saw something from Ahsoka.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, and you and I were there, but we weren't in the panel. Uh,
No, we were not.
um, we were not in the panel, so we didn't see anything, and nobody else saw anything
No.
unless you were in that room.
Yeah.
So I could see the same kind of situation. I mean, yeah, now Ahsoka's getting its own panel. Yeah, maybe there'll be some stuff that people in the panel will only see, but I would imagine there's going to be a trailer publicly dropped like right around the same time, or
Mm.
um, that's my guess, or something. Some will look at it, some type of teaser. Um, and then when it comes to Skeleton Crew, though, and Acolyte, I wouldn't be shocked, since they're both filming and or done filming, that they'll show something to the people who are there, but not necessarily anybody else. That's my guess.
That's fair. That's fair. I would imagine, what I'm guessing is we'll see something from Skeleton Crew, maybe even the cast. The Acolyte, for some reason, I feel like that's going to get pushed back some more in terms of like us seeing anything about it and
Could be.
not learn anything about it, and which will bum
Since
me
it's
out
still
because it's
filming.
one of the ones I really want to
Oh yeah.
get more about. Like, just give us a little bit. You don't even have to show anything. Just tell us more. Just give us some ideas of what it's like, or
Mm,
just concept art, something. I really hope that they, even if they don't show it to the general public, just get it like seen in front of some people's eyes that can at least describe it to the rest of us, or something to get us going with that one, because it's one of the ones I'm looking forward to the most. So I think there's, like I said, the idea that, or the possibility that Skeleton Crew will get some stuff shown there. But then I would say my second question to you is, with pre-existing Star Wars series for Disney Plus, do you think they will announce or will even do a season 2 of the Book of Boba Fett or Obi-Wan?
no.
No on both.
I would say no on both.
Hmm.
That's my guess. um, I don't know. I guess I hadn't thought about a second season of Obi-Wan in a little while. I know we've talked about it. I know there's been just like talk about it out there.
Yeah.
Um, but lately it just hasn't crossed my mind. So now, like being put on the spot, I'm like, I don't know. If I had to guess, I would guess. I'd guess I don't think either would happen. That's my bet. How about you?
I don't. Hmm. If they do something with Boba, I don't feel like we've left them alone completely.
I
I
would agree with
don't know
that.
that. Yeah, I don't know that if Boba Fett will appear in the Mandalorian this season at all. Um,
Right.
and if not this season, then maybe next. But I feel like maybe the idea could be something of a. I don't want to say a movie because I don't know that they will want to use their resources to put a movie on Disney Plus, even if it's a smaller scale. But that's the only kind of thought I would have in terms of something for the Book of Boba Fett for a second season, something very tightly knit. It's something like a 2 hour. It's basically a movie, but
Mm,
yeah, that's what I would see for that. And for Obi-Wan, I do feel like we'll get another season of that, but not announced this year. I
no.
think that might come around again. Um, Better ideas, better budget. That they know they kind of lost goodwill there when it could have done even better, and that they'll probably try and give it a second shot. That's sort of what I'm thinking, but not this year.
Yeah. I would be very surprised if they announced something at Celebration this year. But
Yeah,
so yeah, I would agree with you that if it's going to happen, we won't hear about it yet.
yeah, yeah. Well, with that, there's another thing that I did want to get your thoughts on. It feels like it's been an unusually long award season.
Mm.
Oddly enough, I don't know why, but it just definitely feels like we've hit a long run of awards shows that have been popping up. But this Sunday is the the big one, the granddaddy of them all is the Oscars.
Hmm.
Um, what's your temperature like right now for watching these Oscars in terms of excitement level or whatever the case may be?
It's tough because it's like I can't disconnect myself from the Oscars as much as I try. Like it comes down to my just kind of love of movies and Hollywood and the Oscars. I've said it a million times. It feels like the Super Bowl for like that kind of
Yeah.
love, right? And even when it's done poorly, like I think it was last year's. I remember
Hmm.
after watching last year's, going, my God, like that was bad. Like, and the year before, I think it was even worse, or I don't know,
Yeah.
like, and just feeling like I really should stop watching this. But I just enjoy the kind of fanfare of it. Like,
Mm.
it's a fault, but I just do. And I'm I talked to Michelle and I talked about it yesterday. I was like, all right, so Sunday, are we gonna like getting snacks and gonna like have a not a party. I don't think we're inviting anybody over or anything, but
Right.
we gonna watch the Oscars and have an Oscar night, and probably
Hmm.
we are. And then this year is especially complicated because of The Last of Us.
Right. Yeah.
Which it was like The Last of Us, went out of their way to release the episode early the weekend of the Super Bowl, which makes sense. The Super Bowl ratings are ridiculous. Now the Oscar ratings are whatever. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
they don't see the motivation to move it up because of the Oscars. But You know, I could see a situation where we're watching the Oscars and we're
Mm.
going, yeah, let's jump over, watch Last of Us, and then we'll come back. And then we just fast forward through commercials when we come back.
It might be a
Um,
better way to watch it, honestly.
right. Or, but then I could see it play it by ear, like, oh, wow, no, this is actually pretty good. I'm enjoying
Mm.
this. And then I'll just watch the Oscars and watch Last of Us the next day, I guess, in my case, because it's going to be late here on the East Coast.
Oh
Um,
man. Well, all I have to say, if you do that,
I'll
is
stay off social media
make sure you do
completely.
not go on on social media, because
No, I
no
won't.
doubt that will be all over the place.
Yeah. No, I'll if I don't watch it immediately, which is possibility, which is a
Mm.
bummer, but it's a
Yeah.
possibility. Yeah, I would just basically stay off my phone and the internet until we watch it.
Yeah, I would say I'm not excited right now to watch it, but
I would agree with that, by the way. I'm not excited either.
yeah,
I didn't really answer that part of your question, I don't think.
okay. Well, I kind of got that. That was where your level was in terms
Right.
of how you're anticipating it. But I know I'll enjoy it, quote unquote, once it's on, and get into it once it's on and once I turn
Hmm.
it on. But in terms of leading up to it, it's not like I'm amped on it and ready and can't wait for Sunday to watch that. If anything, obviously, like you said, it's for me amped and can't wait to watch the Last of Us season finale. And oddly enough, Pedro Pascal will be in two places at once, because he'll be in The Last of Us and also a presenter for this year's Oscars. So
Right.
um, he's all over the place these days. But um, I do.
I have to call somebody out, like a friend of mine today who's my age. Like she's just also it's in fairness to her, she's just not as that connected to this
Plugged
stuff. She
in.
doesn't watch them.
Mm,
She's not plugged in. Like, and
yeah.
she had to ask, I guess, her daughter like who he was. She doesn't even know who Pedro Pascal is. And I'm like,
Mm,
I get it, but at the same time, it's like, wow, like from our
yeah.
perspective, he's such a thing right now, like just
Totally.
everywhere. His episode
Like a
of Hot One,
household name at this
yeah,
point to me.
his episode of Hot Ones dropped today, which I'm actually looking forward to watching.
Mm,
um, yeah, he's just he is having a moment for sure. So to like see her social media post today, it was like that she had to ask her like, who is this guy? I had to ask her daughter like, who is this dude? Like I was like, wow, you really don't know who he is, but I get it. Anyway, sorry I cut you off.
no, no, and you're right. There's a lot of people out there who don't know him from the things that we know him from, especially
Mhm,
if they're not genre people. I mean, you think about a lot of the things he's been in recently. He was, yeah, well, I knew him first from Narcos on Netflix, but
mhm,
beyond that, you popped up in Wonder Woman 84. It's the
mhm.
main person, bad guy in that. He was also in the Game of Thrones.
Yep.
So people might have seen that. And then he was in obviously last Mandalorian, and then The Last of Us. He was in the Nick Cage movie last year, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yep.
So he's definitely been in things, and he continues to be in a lot of genre things. So I could see how, if you don't watch those types of things, where you still may not know who he is, but generally speaking, within one of those different things, you might have watched and enjoyed that kind of a thing, and would have seen him and just been like, oh, okay, I know that guy, I just didn't know his name, kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that with this show, it, I don't want to say that it feels anticlimactic, but, and don't get me wrong, I'll be very happy if Everything Everywhere All at Once wins like a ton of awards. But in a way, that's how I feel like it's headed, and so um,
So now it's boring.
so in a way, but I still want them to win.
Oh yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
like, it's an interesting conundrum where you're like, I want this all to win, and if it does win, it won't make for an exciting show, but I'll be at least satisfied and happy on a artistic level in that way for the people that made that and were in it. So
Yeah, no, I get that. There's not like there's not a lot of excitement. It doesn't feel like right now about like, oh, who could win? Like it
right,
really seems like the momentum is with everything everywhere all at once, and deservedly so. Like
yeah,
we've all said, the movie was amazing. Like,
hmm
what was it today? Or I think I saw that like it is now surpassed like Return of the King is like the most. How would I even say
like
that? Like the
awarded
film, the most
movie or
awarded
something.
film of all time.
Yeah,
Like, which blows my mind. Like,
yeah, right.
I mean, but it's a great movie. I'm not saying it doesn't deserve it, but it's just
Yeah,
something I would not have expected. Like, that's
no,
it's great. Um, yeah, no, I'm with you. Like, the part of me that wants there to be some suspense and excitement, like, kind of wishes there were another movie that felt like it was in the running. And I guess, I mean, there are, but it does seem like
yeah.
it's going in the direction of everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah. And again, let me reiterate, I will be very happy if it
Oh,
goes
yeah.
that way. So I do want to see them win and get all the awards, not just the ones that they've already gotten, but this one is the one that I imagine all of them want more than any of the other ones that they've gotten so far. So
Yeah.
you definitely would trade all the other ones in for the ones that they could get for Sunday night. So
Right.
I do want to see them get those awards. Before we get out of here, I just wanted to mention that I'd been hearing a lot about an Apple TV Plus series that had been going around for a little while. It's not been out for that long, but just long enough. It's called Shrinking, and it has stars Jason Segel and Harrison Ford is in it as well. And I started watching it, and man, is that show really, really good. I enjoy it quite a bit. I watched like 4 episodes in one night when I was just only going to watch the first episode and was like, all right, I just want to see what it's about. And then I'll watch more the next day. And it kind of sucks too, because well, that it doesn't suck in the sense of that being a bad thing, but it was like it was already about 9 when I started it. So I was like, it's 30 minutes. I can knock out 30 minutes and get ready to go to bed after that. And of course, like I said, I binged 4, so it was probably like around 11 or midnight that I actually went to bed that night. And I was like, I can't do that. So I enjoyed it that much, though. It's been quite a while since I've watched a show that made me want to keep watching it after the first episode and hitting it. And it just has such an old school comedy feel in terms of the sort of the structure in a way that it gives you I would say newer comedy shows like uh I guess the only one I can think of off the top of my head right now is sort of like a Modern Family, but not a Modern Family, but just
No.
in the sense of like it's within that realm of TV, not sitcom like in the 90s or 2000s, early 2000s. It's more recent than that, but it still has that old school sort of feel to it because it has a theme song. Like when do you see shows nowadays that has a theme song and a opening credits kind of thing to it?
Mm.
And then it also has a, not a concept, but like a way of ending each episode that just makes you automatically want to hit play to watch the next episode. So it's been quite a treat, and I've heard it compared to in a positive way, not necessarily in the sense of them being exactly the same, but just maybe the feeling that you get from it being compared favorably to Ted Lasso, which I have not seen yet, but makes me want to watch that even more after having watched this. So,
I thought you had started finally Ted
no,
Lasso.
I've not
Like,
even
oh my
started it. No,
god!
no, no. Yeah, and that's
But
coming
it's
back here
doomed for you.
soon.
I feel like it's doomed, man. Like, I mean,
I
I think
know.
Ted Lasso is amazing, but like, you waited so long, you're probably gonna. I fear you're gonna watch it and go. I mean, it's good,
But
but it's not that good.
I don't know that I have my expectations so high up there that it can't meet it. all I'm thinking of when I think about Ted Lasso is if the show is good enough to where I can see, oh, that's sharply written comedy and it's making me laugh. And if it hits that for me, then I think I will agree with it being, as good as people were saying. Um, Same like with Schitt's Creek, which I haven't watched, but I could see how that would be same thing where people raved about that, and that last season won so many awards. And so I would say that, yeah, I don't think I'm one of those ones that typically, after hearing so much hype, will have that expectation of it living up to a certain type of hype. It just needs to sort of cover a certain um Venn diagram, I guess, of funny and well written and well acted kind of thing for me to be able to say, yep, that does hit the spot, and I can see why everyone loves it as much as they do. So I'm hoping once I do get around to it that I feel the same way as everyone else, because I'm open to it. I'm not arms crossed saying, let's see what this show has and what everyone thinks is so good about this Ted Lasso.
Right.
No, I'm not thinking of it like that. So I'm really hoping that I enjoy it the same way everyone else does when I get to see it.
Well, and I mean, maybe you didn't realize this, but there are like, is there some crossover there with the creators between the two shows?
No, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Brett Goldstein, who's also an actor in Ted Lasso, I guess he's labeled as a co-creator and an executive producer on Shrinking.
Oh,
So is Bill Lawrence. He's also
I know Bill Lawrence's name.
yeah, he's affiliated with both shows. Um, but then I want to say Jason Segel is, I don't know if it was he originally gestated this idea for Shrinking or not, but I know he's heavily involved with, not, he's not just an actor in it. I think
Right.
he's heavily involved with the creation of the show as well. So yeah, there's some common ground between the two shows for sure. But yeah, I've been watching Shrinking. I'm not completely caught up right now. I think I'm like I think an episode just dropped, or is this episode dropping tomorrow? So maybe I'll be 2 episodes behind as of tomorrow, maybe. But no, I think the show's great. I'm very happy with that show.
Yeah.
It's one of you very quickly, or I found very quickly that I enjoy this cast, and even if aspects of it may be unrealistic, I just enjoy hanging out with these people, and that's a key, I think, with almost any show, but especially a show like this. Like, do I just want to hang out with these people for 30 minutes? And I totally do. Like, I enjoy the cast and the dynamic between everybody. And Harrison Ford, I was kind of curious to see how he would be in this. And he's getting older, and I had heard mixed things. I had heard some thoughts about his appearance in this. Like, he just kind of comes up across like grumpy old Harrison Ford. And actually, I like him in this show. I think he's quite good in it. Jessica Williams, I think, is great in it. I like her a lot. Everybody, Jason Segel. I've always been a Jason Segel fan for sure. I mean, Forgetting Sarah Marshall is one of my all-time favorite like comedies of the past however many years. But yeah, no, I think it's a very good show. I like it a lot. So I was happy to hear you started watching it.
Yeah, and also along those lines, it just got renewed for season 2 today. So that's great to hear. And I'm looking forward to being able to watch more of that in the future. Do you know who is the actress that plays the next door neighbor? I think her character's name is Liz, but whoever she is, I don't think I've seen her in anything before necessarily, or at least stood out to me in any way before. But I have to say, she has extremely good comedic timing. Like, very good. She reminds me of a Megan Mullally in a sense of her comedic timing.
So her name, by the way, is Krista Miller. She was in Scrubs. I did not watch a lot of Scrubs, not because I thought it was bad. I just didn't. And I don't know if she was in every episode or how prominent her role was in that. It looks like she probably had a fairly prominent role in the Drew Carey show. But yeah, Krista Miller is her name.
Okay. Yeah, she's so good in it. And one of my favorites in there. He's barely, does a lot, but whenever he's on, he just makes me laugh. Is Ted McGinley, who plays her husband, and he's
Oh
old
yeah.
school. Like anyone who's ever seen Ted McGinley, you would know him either from Happy Days or
Hmm.
from Married with Children. He's just been a comedy staple for years and years, and he's got some great one-liners in this show. He
Yeah.
just pops up and says something, and it's just so funny. But yeah, I really do enjoy that quite a bit. And one show that I had started watching, only I watched the first episode. I think I mentioned it here, and I'm going to end up doing something I don't think I've ever done, which is subscribe to a streaming service just for one show, just so I can watch it. And that show is Poker Face, which
Mm.
I really did enjoy the first episode because it's available for free if you have Peacock, and the free version of Peacock, you can watch the first episode for free.
Mm.
And that first episode did enough to sell me to want to watch the rest of the series. And I think they just had their season finale this week. So I want to get the service and binge it, and, you know, drop the service after I finish binging
Yeah.
it. But I really think it's a really good show. It's uh, Ryan Johnson is behind it, and he obviously is a really interested in detective type stories all the way from back in the day with Brick and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and obviously, of course, he has the Glass Onion and the movies with all of a sudden I forget his name, main actor, um, James Bond.
Oh, Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig, thank you. Yeah. So
Sorry.
yeah, that's like it's right up his alley, and I think it's very well written. And a lot of people I've seen compare it to a little bit of Columbo. I think I'd
Yeah, I've
watched
heard that
maybe a few
comparison.
episodes before of Columbo, but not enough to know that that's an acute or a correct comparison there. But um, I do like what I saw enough to watch more. And the main star is Natasha Lyonne, and you've seen her, I think, most recently in the Netflix series. Um, oh gosh, now I'm blanking on that. I am just terrible right now with everything that I'm trying to think of in terms of series and stuff. But uh, it was a great series, and they also, you might know her from American Pie movies from when they were out back in the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that would be my recommendation for anyone out there looking for a good series. I think it's really solid. And the only other thing that I wanted to mention real quick is I'm so far enjoying Star Trek Picard season 3, the final season. Another episode dropped yesterday, no, today,
Hmm.
Thursday. And I don't know if we had talked about it yet, and so I kind of was curious, or if we had talked about it, where you're at with it currently.
Sadly, I've not started season 3 yet.
Oh, okay.
It needs to happen. I'm a big Trek fan, but I have not started that season yet. Very much wanting to.
Yeah, I had told a friend of mine who had not watched season 1 or season 2 if they needed to watch those 2 seasons in order to watch season 3. And because most of the promotion out there was showing that it's very next generation heavy with a lot of the characters returning. And I said that I had heard, or at least read, that you probably didn't need to. There
Hmm.
might be one or two things you would maybe be like not sure about, but overall you could probably just jump right in. And uh, he took my advice and he'd watch it, and he's been enjoying it and doesn't feel like he's missed, from watching the first 2 seasons of the series. So another good one that's out there right now.
No, I mean, I had heard the hype going into the season, and I've been kind of pumped about seeing it because, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because, I mean, as much as I consider myself a Trek fan, I also have not finished season 2 of Picard.
Mm.
But to be honest, I'm not saying I was hating it. It was fine, but now that season 3 is out, I'd kind of already decided. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to even bother finishing season 2. I'm just going to jump into season 3. I mean, it's kind of my impression that I'll be fine. I don't really need to finish season 2. I don't know if even before season 3, if there's kind of a recap of anything going into it. I don't know if they do that.
They do a recap. I don't recall even if I watched it. I think I watched maybe a little bit. I can't remember, but then I jumped right into it. And so I don't feel like they had covered much of anything from season 2 that would have been like, oh, wow, I missed a lot. It really felt like, okay, because I didn't watch, I think I only watched the first couple episodes of season 2. So there's obviously a lot that would have happened, but it's not showing itself in so far in this season that you would have had to have seen all of season 2 to understand things going on now.
Right. But yeah, I'm gonna start that soon, but I haven't started it yet.
Cool.
To answer your question.
Well, that's all I got. Good to go.
Good to go. Yep. With that, we are going to wrap things up and get out of here. As always, we would love to hear back from everybody listening and watching. You can email us at feedback@flickereffects.com. If you're watching us on YouTube live or in the future, make sure to leave any questions or comments down below. You can like and subscribe, and please hit that bell icon to be notified whenever we go live or post videos in the future. We are also on Instagram and Twitter at @Flicker_effect. With that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
Thanks for listening and watching, everybody. Bye-bye.